Welcome to the MoxStars Podcast. I am Menace, one of your hosts, and I'm here with Flash.
What's up?
What is up, dude? There's a storm brewing. Do you hear it coming? Do you smell the rain?
There's a word for it.
Really?
Smell of rain. Yeah. I don't know what it is. It would be better if I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're in the comments and you let us know if you know what that word is, please leave a comment below. Because this is the MoxStars Podcast, the #1 podcast on the internet for Magic the Gathering and Dr. Pepper. Not the podcast for knowing what the smell of rain is, though. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so by finding us on YouTube, where you can like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more notifications. You can also support us via all major podcasting platforms, your podcast platform of choice. By leaving us a 5-star review, you make us look super duper cool and help new people find the show. You can also support us via Patreon. Oh, hit the button. Oh, you can be a pepper, a true pepperhead. Have your name turned Dr. Pepper Red, supporting the show for $3 a month. You can also support us at the 2-liter tier, like definitely Jeremy, Poolboy Barry, UWP Quirt, and Aaron Becca. For $10 a month, you can support us at the 2-liter tier, get access to our Patreon videos, and you can also support us at the Cherry Vanilla Pepperhead tier for $5 a month. Or you can gain access to the mighty Dr. Pepper MoxStars Lounge, like Ravenlift, where LeBron James hangs out, has brunch, brings his fake family from time to time. Have not seen the family in a while. No, it's been strange. Usually, Bron's, fake basketball son, the one that turns to Don Cheadle for help in Space Jam 2. Usually, he gets the French toast. Hasn't been coming in lately. Don't know if it's something wrong with our French toast, or don't know if it's, it's like a Dr. Pepper French toast. We make the syrup out of reduced Dr. Pepper and maple, and then the custard we dip the bread in has Dr. Pepper in it too. So it's all these things. Whipped cream is made with Dr. Pepper, and then we got that. By the way, we contacted the Peeps company. We have that sugar now. We dust it with that nice Dr. Pepper sugar that covers those Peeps. So you got to check out the MoxStars Dr. Pepper Lounge for $50 a month. You get a free hat every single month. The NAYA GON DO hat, which, by the way, spoiler alert, this episode is a long one. We're going to be talking about the NAYA GON DO mentality, what it takes to be a NAYA player, and a lot of different perspectives. We've got Ian and Tordeth on the show later, and we just take our whole brains and throw it out onto the table and say, here, NAYA. But before we get into that, there's a storm a-brewing. The smell of rain is clearly present. Tarkir, Dragonstorm. We've gotten quite a few tasty little nuggets, plenty of legendary dragons, plenty of new commanders for everybody to be excited about. And good news, y'all, this is not a hat set. No hats present. If they would wear hats on this plane, what kind of hat would it be anyway? I guess Surak is wearing a hat. It's got tusks and stuff on it. Imagine if everyone was wearing a tusk hat.
Hey, do you think there will ever be a Tusk Universes Beyond?
Tusk? Oh, God.
Do you know the movie, the Kevin Smith movie, starring Justin Long?
Yes. It took me a second to register. I was like, Tusk? Oh, yeah.
Like what cards would be there? Like a Meat Hook Massacre, probably, right?
Yeah. A Meat Hook Massacre, like a Transmogrify,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Or a
Polymorph, maybe?
Yeah, Polymorph. There you go.
Yeah. Wow. Anyway, that'll never happen. Or maybe, well,
We don't know the direction they're taking this.
For a Universes Beyond based on the Kevin Smith, Justin Long feature, Husk? We'll find out.
Find out soon. Well, there are a lot of secret layers that are being announced lately. There's a super drop coming as well. It's called Our Bosses Are Out of Town or something like that. So there's a lot of secret layers on the horizon. Your dreams could come true, if their bosses are out of town again. So Tarkir Dragonstorm, there's a lot of brewing here. There are a few cards in cEDH that we're just going to talk about and just, really see if they have a place. There's one right away that is clearly evident that it's yes, this will be a cEDH playable card. It actually breathes new life into certain decks that, may have lost a little steam. So, let's just jump right into it. Voice of Victory. This is probably the most exciting card from Tarkir Dragonstorm as it relates to cEDH. It is 1 and a white, a human bard. That's a 1/3. It has an ability called Mobilize. This is new. Whenever this creature attacks, create 2 tapped and attacking 1/1 red warrior creature tokens. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. The next line of text, the important one. Your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. This is another abolisher effect that gives decks like Nagila new life. So I'm excited about this. I am always looking for, less mana intensive abolisher effects. When I'm building, I actually don't play abolisher if it doesn't directly contribute to yes, I do play food chain, I do play combos or whatever, but a lot of the decks I build don't lend to abolisher is pitchable to solitude, sure, but it doesn't do multiple things, and that's what I like cards to do. Where this Voice of Victory now it has multiple lines of text, it has multiple abilities, and it does the thing you're looking for. It has that Kutzil line of text. It's not exactly abolisher. Obviously, abolisher pretty much just shuts off everything outside of channel, and Voice of Victory has, a little is slightly limited, isn't as crazy, but you get tokens out of the deal, so that certain cards in standard, this is going to be ridiculous because it's a 1/3. It's going to be hard to block and kill, but then you have things like Caretaker's Talent where the attack will draw cards, and then you also have certain token doubling effects like Doubling Season is standard legal, and blah blah and this
Elspeth,
that.
The new Elspeth is standard legal.
Exactly. Yeah, this is the next, I think, exciting card from the set that it might even be cEDH viable, depending on what we find it does, over the course of how it interacts with certain things. But for 3 and 2 white, you have Elspeth Stormslayer. It's a 5, enters with 5 loyalty, legendary planeswalker. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many tokens are created instead. And you can +1 to create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. Hold on. That static ability means it would be 2. Oh my God. +1, create 2. And then you can zero it out, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain flying until your next turn. Jesus. And you can also -3, destroy target creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater. So that is very much in line with what Elspeth has done in the past, but and maybe the rest of it as well. But it just, wow. These planeswalkers, man, packed with value. Packed. There's another planeswalker we're going to be talking about today as well. But Flash, what are your initial thoughts on putting a token doubling static effect on a planeswalker?
It was going to happen sooner or later.
Yeah, I guess you're right. So at this point,
that is the design space, right? Like, they love doubling effects. They are struggling to find interesting design space for planeswalkers sometimes, right?
Yeah. So
it can be hard to not make them OP or nothing. So this was going to happen, right? And here it is. I think this is a good card. Like, it's probably going to make a splash in Standard, right?
Yeah, I think it absolutely will make a splash. Like, it'll be played. It doesn't do Wandering Emperor stuff, unfortunately. Like, if it had Flash, I'd be like, what? Why? But it is really, really great. It's really, really fun, I think, in Standard. And obviously, I think more than anything, this is a Commander card. Designed for Commander. All of these doubling effects basically are designed for Commander in mind. And, like, yeah, you're right. I don't know if I have the, like, justification to be surprised anymore. Like you said, it was going to happen one way or the other. And yeah, it's here. Doubling effects on planeswalkers. At least you can attack it. You know, that's the one thing. It can be removed a little bit more easily. There are obviously more effects that deal with planeswalkers than ever before. So, I mean, we'll truly see how powerful it can be. But unanswered, you have not quite a doubling season, but you do have Anointed Procession printed on a planeswalker for 1 additional white mana. We have a reprint of Craterhoof Behemoth here. And I'll get to it. All right, we'll talk about it next. The card that everybody wants to hear about. It's Tempest Hawk. Just kidding. It's the Ugin. The Ugin that makes everyone's eyes roll into the back of their head. Like, what? Why? You have Ugin. Eye of the Storms. For 7 generic mana. 7 generic mana. 1 less than... OG Ugin was 8 mana, correct?
I believe so. 8 mana or 6 mana. It's one of the two.
Yeah.
On his printings.
Ugin. 7 generic mana. When you cast this spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. Whenever you cast a colorless spell... exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. Yikes. 7 loyalty to start. +2. You gain 3 life and draw a card. 0. Add 3 colorless mana. -11. Search your library for any number of colorless non-land cards. Exile them, then shuffle. Until end of turn, you may cast those cards without paying their mana costs. Yeah. Woo!
Powerful. You know what? I know I was just trashing the design space of Planeswalkers where they struggle to find a way to make it, you know, not completely overpowered or not completely trash. They usually land on the Ugins. Most of the Ugins are good.
Yeah. Yeah,
this
even
one is no exception.
Even the War of the Spark Ugin that, like, I think is probably the worst one, is still really good. You know? So this is something else. Like, I can see this being cEDH playable. There are so many donuts, like, and so many just general artifacts in cEDH that you get out fast enough. You get out to a certain point. You know, this would make certain top end decks play Ugin's Labyrinth, I think, from Modern Horizons 3. You know, like, you can exile this to that, and then now you have 2 additional generic mana. You know, that's like Christmas Land, obviously. But, you know, like, I think you can play this, land this, and then as an outlet for like, it's almost like a Tidespout Tyrant Hullbreaker thing or whatever, but you could just bounce your artifacts infinitely and then bada bing, bada boom, exile everybody's permanents. So I don't know. It has that upside. I guess that's what I'm getting at is it has upside. There's enough generic value to be had where like you +2, you gain 3 life and draw a card. And then the 0 is add 3 colorless mana. There's not nothing. I think it, so once you land it, you can still prolong your turn. You can 0 it out, cast another colorless spell, and then exile something as well. So cast it, exile something, create the mana, exile something else. It's really good.
It's a good card, and it's going to get cracked, right?
Yeah. Someone will crack this. This is going to wreak havoc on Modern, I think, with access to Tron and stuff like that. It's one less affinity maybe wants something like this where they can just keep dropping free things and exiling permanents. So yeah, it's really good. I'm excited to see where it goes. Well, Tarkir Dragonstorm is on the horizon. We will continue to monitor it, and next week we'll talk about it if anything really comes up and becomes influential or really stands out as something that can contribute to cEDH and can contribute to just the game in general. I think that's what we like talking about, are just cards that excite us. And we're looking forward to it. Just again, happy it's not a hat set. Happy that they're really just making it feel like a Magic set. So, Flash, any final thoughts on Tarkir Dragonstorm?
No, I'm just enjoying the feeling of classic Magic while we're in this current product cycle. And
like we said, the company has to do a lot right consistently in order, like, we're taking this as like a breather from hat sets. The company still has to prove that they know what they're doing. to make us happy consistently. So I'm right there with you, man. It's a good feeling for a lot of the artworks. They inspire and invoke a sense of immersion. All right, let's talk about some NAYA stuff. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. We've got Ian here.
What's going on, buddy?
What's up, dude? Welcome to the show. First timer.
Yeah, nice to be here. I love the energy.
Yeah, you are at this moment honorary MoxStar. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and we've got a returner, a very, very a seasoned vet in the NAYA guy community. We've got Tordeth. Justin.
NAYA guy gonna do. NAYA guy gonna do.
I might just scream that into the, like, whenever I agree with a certain point that we're making, I might just go, NAYA guy gonna do.
I need to get one of those hats.
Oh, dude, they're hot.
Sent me over a picture of it. I want to see. I need to get one of those.
Yeah, they're hot. I'm also getting we're getting Get Glarbed hats as well. And I was just thinking about this, but I'm kind of like I'm fully committed to the NAYA guy gonna do, like, that is my core identity, right? But I've been dabbling in other colors, and I think I'm kind of a Bant bitch now, a little bit.
You saw that Derevi list at one fishbowl?
No. I've been playing Helga.
Oh.
Helga is the truth.
I'm gonna have to look that one up.
I'll send you a list after this. It really is like, it's my Rocco, right? Where I don't play many food chain. I play a lot of food chain, but Helga is food chain, Bant food chain for me. I'm really enjoying it right now. So,
I mean, you just straight up traded Underworld Breach for counterspells is all you did. You got that white-green core identity in the deck still.
Yeah, that's absolutely, and that's kind of goes into my NAYA identity, is like the white-green is my core of my play style. And so that's what we're going to get into today,
is kind of what is your Naya identity? Because I feel like all three of us have different identities, and we're constantly testing our mettle as it, like, when it comes to tournament, like when it comes to jamming games and everything like that. We're trying to, like, create obviously the most efficient machine and something that can navigate the meta. And so these lists are always ever changing. I think that's how like when someone sends you a list, that there's someone who is constantly thinking about how to improve, because it's like, oh, this was last modified 2 minutes ago, like,
all the time.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I always check in on Atlas. Like, I have the link to one of his decks, or to his Kenrith deck, and I'll click on it and just like, oh yeah, he updated this like 10 hours ago. Like, yep, he's still working.
Gotta get the king back on top, man.
Yeah, well, we're that's what we're here to here to dismantle every other color, every other combination with our Naya guy GON DO mentality, because that's kind of what, like, in my mind, which, by the way, I didn't mention this, but this is the #1 podcast on the internet for Magic the Gathering and Dr. Pepper. I feel like if you were to take white, green, and red and mix them together, you would just get Dr. Pepper. That's why, like, Dr. Pepper meshes perfectly with the Naya guy GON DO mentality. I feel like if you just mixed everything that white, red, and green does, jammed it all together, you get 23 flavors.
I can see that.
It's very bold and refreshing.
It is.
And then when you add cherry, you get like you have to add black in there, so then you get the Stan's blue for the cherry Dr. Pepper.
You're really walking a line here. You're straying outside the Naya guy GON DO. Oh, you start adding black in there, it just gets too easy. You get tutors.
There's reasons, though. That's why we're here. There's tons of reasons to play just Naya. Well, there's really just one, to be honest. But Tordeth's here to tell me why there's more.
Yeah, so go ahead.
When I moved out this way with Rocco, was, hey, you got to get in touch with Ian. You got to get in touch with Ian. Oh my God, you play Rocco, so does Ian. And so when we finally hooked up and we compared lists, we were like 40 cards different with both our Rocco lists.
40 cards?
40 cards.
Yeah.
And we left that tournament realistically with the same point total. We both put up wins. We both put up draws. We do just fine. And I think that's why I like this color pie so much, is you can do such disparate things and still maintain, oh yeah, that's a Naya deck, right?
Yeah.
It's just so great.
Yeah, so Ian, run us through, like, your Naya, like, identity, your Rocco list having such, like, 40 card difference is massive. And I know that you guys have been chatting recently and have sort of, it's like you've blended the strategies a little bit, but we talked a little earlier off record about, some of the unique pieces that you've discovered in Naya that help you navigate your meta. So I guess dive into it a little bit. Like, obviously Rocco needs sack outlets. I see Phyrexian Dreadnought here. And, it is a great one-drop sack outlet. I dive into it, my guy.
No, for sure. Rocco's really interesting because, like Tordeth was saying earlier, you can take it any which way you want. I'm preferring to go, I guess you would say I'm the turbo representative for Naya here, because I'm looking to play the least amount of Magic as I possibly can with my list. Icing people out with silences is so powerful when you have access to it either in the zone with Final Fortunes. Really, it's all about just assembling the quickest combo as possible.
Yeah.
And the Rectors are typically the way to get there. A lot of people...
they choose one or the other.
Yeah, a lot of people will choose one or the other. And I've chose to go on both of them for different reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason the Rector combos are so good, and we'll get to Phyrexian Dreadnought here in a second, is because you can funnel them through your commander, which is extremely difficult to counter, right? Like most of the interaction in this format is blue negates or counter spells. And
Right.
if you could dodge a third of the interaction just off the negates and then use something like Cavern or something else to force through the counter spells, you're really, if you get Food Chain, like you don't even really lose to creature removal, right? And if you can force those through, you don't have to cast another spell with Arena Rector. The spells in the deck are mostly used to, once the Rector's in play with a 3-drop, you get to sack off the Rector uncounterably, right? So, and that's the biggest thing is like a lot of people will let like a creature get into play that they shouldn't have. Typically the Rector, or like, you know, you cast a Eldritch Evolution or cast a Tutor. It doesn't say Academy Rector.
Yeah, if X is 4 or less, or in the Eldritch Evolution case, if X is, you know, if it includes 4 as one of the things that you can search, like the alarms should be going off. You should, yeah, like that is the point in which to interact. But a lot of people choose not to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's how you get them a lot of time. And it was with these lists is because the combos are so layered, they'll be thinking of other things that they've seen, like Tordeth slits. The fact that he exists is like good for me, right? Because I sit down at the table and they're pegging me for like, okay, he's going to tutor up a collector.
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
No. Absolutely not.
No, they see Tordeth there, or like they see Tordeth's playstyle, or they've played with him in the past or whatever, and they expect like a little bit of a value engine. So that is like kind of where you're like, Tordeth, you come in, your playstyle's very different because you play a ton of value engines over like I would say hellbent pursuing combo lines.
Oh yeah, I really enjoy the Rube Goldberg aspect of
Let's
things
go.
that I do. Like we had talked about it before, where if it doesn't do 3 different things in the deck, I don't even want it in the list. And that's just so different. But because of the flexibility of what we're trying to do with the red, green, and white, you can have the glass cannon mentality or the value toolbox mentality.
Yeah. Yep. And Rocco gives you access to both play styles. Like you were saying, Ian, it's just like for what it does, it's, if anyone out there is listening to this and you have not seen Rocco Cabaretti Caterer, it is X red, green, white, elf druid 3/1 that when it enters, if you cast it, you may search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield. It is the perfect zoo commander, things that, you know, cares about creature combos. So I can't believe it's uncommon, but it lends to like literally infinite lines of play. You can do anything you want, but they're also the most common lines, right? Like Food Chain is the big thing here. We know that a commander that has the ability to funnel infinite mana into it over and over and over again is likely going to become a Food Chain deck in some form or fashion. It's just too efficient. So as like Rocco always exists with Food Chain. I feel like if you're yeah.
If anybody doesn't know the Food Chain line and the reason you're saying it's so good, it's because if you draw Food Chain or find it, right, like the Rocco gets the squee, and then the Food Chain sacks off the Rocco and the squee, makes infinite mana, and gets to grab every creature in their whole deck.
Yeah,
right? Like that's the basis for like most everybody's turn 1 or turn 2 kills in the list. Like not a lot of other lines are going to get you there on turn 2, and almost nothing else on 1.
Yeah. It's like, I think that's the craziest thing about Rocco, and is that we end up in a very likely turn 2 win scenario a lot of the time. Like that's what the deck generally, that's what you're mulliganing for, is the potential for that upside. And very rarely do we see that in these colors, because for me, like when I'm playing Naya, I'm not actually looking to assemble. I'm assembling a different set of combos, right? Like I'm not playing Food Chain right now. I'm actually playing Shaline Halar. So Naya isn't just relegated to, just Rocco. It can be like, I think some very popular like decks right now, if you're looking at Naya, are like Voja is a weird one where like Elf Ball, Elf Tribal is actually like kind of a grindy, like it's a really effective card draw engine, that is unsuspecting. I don't think people realize that the longer the game goes, the more likely it is that Voja wins. And we also have Dargo, was it Sidar? Is that the
Dargo Sidar? Yeah, it's a good Rector list.
Yeah.
And it just Greater Good puts in so much work in that list too. You get the most bang for your buck with green card draw.
Yeah, so Dargo is also just like, if this isn't like this, that's an this is off color for Dargo, right? Dargo is also one of the best, like one red mana, essentially sack outlets. It eats creatures, it eats artifacts. And so you can, like you were saying, Ian, it's a great Rector list because it eats the Rector and then you go into your lines. So,
it has all the tools it needs, especially because I'm pretty sure that list typically it'll tutor up Underworld Breach or the Greater Good, right? Those are like the two big lines.
Yeah.
Which that's pretty nasty. I mean, that like people don't, when they think of Naya, a lot of times they think of like the zoo, like you mentioned earlier, Menace, or like some sort of like lands deck in Legacy is very much that. But I mean, you can go into a Storm deck if you wanted to. Like all the pieces are there in red green for Storm.
Yeah.
If you're willing to use some dorks, and the silences, will let you get away with almost anything.
Yeah, that's the strength that we have, right? Is like with these three colors, we have flexibility in that. And Tordeth, you were mentioning earlier, like the Rube Goldberg aspect of this. I feel like it's actually part of the identity. You have to want to like build something that operates in a off tempo way so that it can get there unsuspectingly. Like Ian, even your lines, like when you are almost appearing non-threatening, you still have a way to win, right? It's the tempo in which you play offers you windows of opportunity that get you to where you need to go. So like that's also what Naya is really good at, is that a lot of people, when they see, like, even with the flexibility that Rocco has, most people just look at it and when it's in the zone and they go, okay, I just got to keep my eye out for Rectors and Food Chain, but they don't account for anything else.
I had a win at a tournament yesterday where I didn't touch Food Chain. It was Preston Felidar Guardian.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And I put one creature in a turn. I accrued value. And when the table was talking, I said, hey, you're going to go get Food Chain? I said, I promise you I won't. And then the next one, it's going to be this. I said, I promise you it won't. And they were sitting there scratching their heads. And ultimately, I used Terror of the Peaks to kill the board.
Yeah. I saw that's a recent addition to your list. So
it sure is, but it's so unsuspecting.
Well, because it's seen as like a chunky, like, if we're talking brackets, that's a 3 card, like Terror of the Peaks is like a casual commander card that people, that's how they perceive it a lot of the time. So no, but its effect is Warstorm Surge. So on a creature. So it works with Rocco.
I actually think it has a really unique position, Terror of the Peaks specifically. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen lists that play like Walking Ballista as like an outlet for just like doing infinite mana or something. I've always been of the opinion that if I see a Walking Ballista in your list, it's because you haven't put in enough thought. Like you need to figure out.
Hey.
And so, in a list like this, like Tordeth mentioned to me the other day, like Perforos, or like those 2-drop ones, those ETBs.
Yeah.
A lot of people play those. The Terror of the Peaks lets you clean up, people's boards when you get to these stacks out mid-rangey decks that like, I mean, that's going to happen a lot when you're playing a toolbox list. But also the most important part is that it lets you go just squee, food chain, and
Terror.
The Terror of the Peaks, right?
Yeah.
You don't need anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like
That just gets you the whole line.
I think you're like the claim that Walking Ballista in these lists is, you know, like because you haven't put a ton of thought in is warranted, is valid, because like Walking Ballista doesn't do anything with Rocco.
Mhm.
Like you can't, like you can tutor it and put it in the grave, right? But what do you
Go get your witness.
Yeah, right. And then you go get a witness and then it's like combo town there. Like, but you give your opponents so many opportunities and so many moments of like priority to interact with you after you've, you know, like sort of telegraphed what line you're going to walk. So like, that's like totally fair. Like the Terror of the Peaks line is not telegraphed in any way. Most of the time it comes down and then it's too late. It's already there. It's, you know, and then you need that piece of removal. It's like in the line of text where it says you can deal damage equal to that creature's power to any target. We know how valuable like any target like is, right? When we're talking about damage, it's why we play Lightning Bolt, right? And at instant speed.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge, where if something says like to target creature or planeswalker, immediately steps down like multiple tiers in power. So like I know that right now, Ian, in your list, you are on Rending Volley, which is also valid, right? You have to kill a Drannith if it's there, and it's the most efficient way to do so.
You know, I'm glad you brought up Lightning Bolt, because notably
You're
I'm
not on it.
Tordeth's on it, so maybe this is a spot where we can pick a fight with each other.
Sure.
No, so like my opinion with this one is, and you'll see like there's a lot of 1-drops in my list that that can kill or get rid of Rector, but can't be countered, right? The only one that I'm using that does that and can be countered is the Unwanted Remake, or if they counter the crop rotation for the land sack outlet. So while Lightning Bolt, there's so much upside on killing opposition agents and Dranniths, when you are going for your combo, it opens you up to negate, which is, you know,
Fierce
kind of the biggest
Guardianship
strength, like
type,
the core strength of Naya in general, is that like the creatures are so powerful, you don't have to play that blue counterspell game. Like if you never cast a spell that ever draws a negate, like that's just more negates that are floating around there for breach lines and ad nauseum, so they're just looming over your head. You don't ever want to like pull them out of people's hands.
I just put 2 and 2 together. I am now like more clearly understanding your Naya identity.
Yeah.
Like you have been hurt. You have been hurt by blue. There are scars that are starting to show. Yeah, that it's like I get it. Like I was just having this like very same discussion in the NAYA cEDH Discord server. So like where and this is where Tordeth and I were actually having a conversation the other day about like stacks pieces, where I was going through and I was giving my 2 cents on Shalai and Halar, because like I'm on very few stacks pieces that don't also do something additional to push my strategy forward. And every Shalai and Halar list is just a boatload, a metric shit ton of stacks that will, you know, until they fall into their combo. And that just is not effective. It's why none of those lists are topping. And, you know, and if they happen to break into the top 16 or whatever, final cut, it's sheer RNG madness. And so I was explaining my mindset, and I'm not on Allosaur Shepherd. I'm on Rhythm of the Wild, and I'm on things like Veil of Summer, Red Elemental Blast, and, you know, like Silence as well, where those are my can't be countered type effects. You know, like
Sounds like you've been hurt too.
You know, I have. Like the funny thing is that I've like taught a few like people how to play the game, and I've taught them with green, like as like the core basis. I feel like green is like the simplest concept to understand, where you build up your resources, you play big thing helps you win the game. In 60 card formats, that's great. But once we transition to Commander, everyone I've ever taught how to play immediately transitions to Grixis, and I hate it, and I don't know why. Because they start countering, they start playing like on the stack, and it's something that we as NAYA guys have trouble with. Like, you have to play specific cards in order to combat the most common strategies in cEDH, which are, like the most effective forms of interaction. Unfortunately, Grixis has access to the 3 best pieces as long as you control your commander, right? So, Deflecting Swap, Fierce Guardianship, and Deadly Rollick. So that those hurt. Like they hurt us, and they wound us. And it's great to have little pieces that you can use, like, even though I'm not on Allosaurus Shepherd, I know Tordeth, you are.
I am. And Destiny Spinner.
And Destiny Spinner. I love Destiny Spinner. All for it. It's an enchantment. So I'll get into that in a little bit. But, and then Ian, you as well, like we're just talking about, like Rending Volley. You can't counter that. Like, there's no way to do it. Like, and the idea is that, yes, you can kill something else that's white or blue, or you kill your own Rector. And it's incredibly valuable. Like, I was using Collateral Damage, I think is the spell. It's 1 red mana as an additional cost, sacrifice a creature. And so that is it's an uncounterable. While the spell can be countered, the sacrifice can't be countered. So that's why I was playing that. But Rending Volley has far more utility than So I like that idea, and I like that mindset. So
it stops the stuff that stop you, right? Other than an opposition agent. And killing the Rector uncounterably is probably the biggest reason that it's in the deck. Otherwise, you'd look for something else. But in a spot like that, I see a lot of people play things like Pyroblast. And like, once again, Pyroblast is a busted card, but like it's such a blue mentality card. Like it opens you up to those negates again, right? Like Grixis doesn't mind being open to negates, because if you counter my counterspell, great, that's 1 less for my Underworld Breach. Yeah. Right. Or they're going to protect the Underworld Breach, right? Like, if I put a card that says win the game on the stack, every counterspell that backs it up also says win the game, right? Oh. So,
not even including the fact that you're also now just feeding a Flusterstorm storm count.
Right. Yep. So like that game is like a really intense game that's like tough to beat, which is why like you kind of want to just dodge it, right? Like, I've been thinking a lot lately about Vexing Bauble again. And the reason is because if you look at the cards that like counter creatures, you're looking at Force of Will,
they're all free.
Pact of Negation, and then what's the other one? There's another free Mindbreak Trap.
Yep.
Right, so those are the 3 there, but then also you have to look down the line as to like breaking up your Kiki combos and stuff. Like, once you're actually getting into it, so you're looking at Deadly Rollick, you're looking at the red one, Deflecting Swap.
Yeah, I mean,
that
swap.
one can change the target of Kiki.
Yep.
Right, so like there's all these 0-mana spells. Snuff Out seeing a lot of play now, that are coming back into the meta that really do disrupt this, and that's a card that like you can run that out and safely be like, I'm probably gonna get the turn back, like, unless somebody bounces it.
Yeah, and if you drop it early enough, it is like an additional card later on, or a political stacks piece that you can also, people can try to politic their way into getting you to sacrifice it for some benefit later in the game. As long as we're not dealing with any liars,
We don't want to bring that up, do
we? I know Justin's got some, he's wanting to put it on record, since, I feel like, liars are a critical talking point.
I'm not going to name names, but he wasn't playing NAYA. He knows what he did.
Oh, man.
Heard that.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like a blue-black player.
Sounds like at least he was playing blue-black. Yeah, he was playing blue for sure.
That's
But
good.
yeah, just it was completely unfortunate and broke a deal with 3 players all at once.
Hey, you love to see it. One person digging their own grave. Yep.
But
Yeah.
I want to add to the vexing bubble if I can.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
We also have access to, I think, 2 creatures that do similar-ish effects. Boromir, flat out, is just a better Lavinia because you can sacrifice it if you really need to be able to remove the stacks piece that's losing you the game. I love when you get players that, your Jeskai players that just trot out a Lavinia and you say, yeah, great, I'm going to play this 3rd land, cast my food chain, and just win over the top of everybody. But then we also have Vexing Shusher in another weird vein of, hey, I would like to hold up this Gaia's Cradle and put 10 green into my pool and start firing off my win attempts that are A, all creature based, and 2, the ability to make them uncounterable 10 times. So Ian, you just brought up 3 free creature spells. Okay, great. Now I'm just going to win on the stack because my combination of the White Boromir and the Gruul Vexing Shusher stop what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So my question now is, how valuable is blank makes spells uncounterable? Like, how valuable are Allosaurus Shepherd, Destiny Spinner type effects in this color pie?
They
You want me to take that one?
No, let you go first.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't. So I think we might differ of opinion on this one. I think they're unnecessary. I think you can play around them really easily because the color pie allows you to play around them really easily.
Sure. Yeah.
Like Cavern of Souls is an extremely strong card that can be tutored up easily. If you're not running a couple land tutors, like at least crop rotation, potentially like another one, or if you're not in black or something like that, like not having the ability to tutor up a sack outlet if you're on Rectors or just like Cavern or shifting woodlands to go for another like uncounterable food chain. Those are, they're just like, you have Grand Abolisher, you have the tutor in the zone, right?
Yep.
Well, now is my turn for who
I do like the Vexing Shusher though. It lets you play. It lets you play with your opponents. I'm here with you on that.
I have been forced into a mid-range and control meta in the Pacific Northwest. Everybody has interaction for everything, doing all of it, and I didn't want to be left out, but I don't like playing blue because my hot take is I think it's a crutch color. So with
Let's
that,
go.
I will probably never run a deck without Destiny Spinner, but to the point, if I don't have the Spinner or the Allosaurus Shepherd, yeah, I can crop rot for a Shifting Woodlands all day long, or a Holly Helios Generosity, and just do it again next turn, and repeatedly go over and over and over again. Where you were talking Grixis, Menace, okay, yeah, if we stuff your Breached Thoracle list, you're just kind of done. How often do you see the Tainted Pact to try and stop the thing? It's like, well, there's all my win conditions done. I don't have that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something the Turbo Grixis decks have a problem with. Unfortunately, Blue Farm exists. That's the problem. When you solve that problem, call me because I haven't been able to solve it.
No, I don't think anybody will. But, well, Menace, you were also talking last week about having fun, net decking, and piloting something potentially original. And I know Atlas and I will talk quite a bit about, you got this weird triangle where at the top is having fun, the left is originality, and the right is winning games. And so you basically get this slider of where do you like to live.
Yep.
And I think with Naya, you have the ability to be dead center. And I can go back to my list and Ian's list are 40 cards different, and we both see success with it.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, the triangle theory is like spot on because, yeah, that is something that is critical to my enjoyment as a player. Like how I, reach like fulfillment is like I want to be piloting something that I have tested, something that like is unique, like, and I don't know, is fun, is original. And so like I guess when Shalyn Halar came out, I wasn't super keen on it, but the suggestion was that I would really enjoy it. Hey, turns out that suggestion was right because I got to like build into my core identity. And I think there are I think when you look at Naya and you want to look at having fun, like you have only so many slots you can really play around with where you get to put a pet card or something like that meets it is good enough to play, but it is not a mainstream card. Like for me, in my builds, I'm playing Citizen Champion, right? Which is
what
kind of crazy, right?
I don't know what that does.
Is that the heroic card?
It's Constellation. Yeah. So it's 2 and a green for a human warrior 1/3 that says whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Citizen Champion and draw a card. So, and it sounds like, why is that good? Nobody plays enchantments. Well, I do. So
yeah, that's a Naya guy gonna do.
It's like I fucking do, okay? And the reason that I do it is because like when I was growing as a Magic player, I found that like most of the conversation was driven around like in these colors, you have access to like Gaia's Cradle. So there's a lot of creatures out there, and like Gaia's Cradle generates a ton of mana. It's a super efficient piece. You have crop rotation for Gaia's Cradle. You have crop rotation, like more recently for like Talon Gates. So on that same aspect, I was like, well, we also have to restrict and limit how other players can navigate the game. That's also part of like my core identity as a Naya player, is getting creative with how players have to navigate like the way I set up the board. And like then I was like, well, enchantments are really, really good like right now. And this was like Dockside era, so I was playing Stony Silence and like a bunch of crud like that. And while I still think it has merit today, I'm also on more artifacts than I ever used to be, so it doesn't quite like do the same job. But Serra's Sanctum is Gaia's Cradle, but for enchantments. And a lot of green decks are on Wild Growth. And I was like, okay, like Wild Growth, Utopia Sprawl, Carpet of Flowers, Deafening Silence, Survival of the Fittest, Blind Obedience.
Nice,
it's like all these stacked pieces, they just start making sense, right? And then
Destiny Spinner makes your other enchantments unencounterable, and it's an enchantment.
Exactly. And then you have like new Kiki-Jiki combos in Duskmourn, Fear of Missing Out. So you draw your entire library and you kill the table by untapping Kiki-Jiki if you have Delirium. So and then like Shalyn Halar was kind of my perfect like battleground for this, like to test this theory that like Enchantress can be viable, because one of the 2-card combos is Heliod. So for me, it was like, oh, that's an enchantment. Oh, that's an enchantment. Oh, that's an enchantment. That's an enchantment. And then all of a sudden it's like Serra's Sanctum becomes kind of crazy. Oh, and then there's Sanctum Weaver that also generates a fuck ton of mana. It's one of those things where this type of strategy allows you to hit your windows a lot easier than you were able to previously, especially since all of these builds that were in this, like in the Shalyn Halar lane, all of the builds are just stacks pieces, right? The creature-based stacks that slow the game down until you just eventually get into your win condition or get into your lines. Like I didn't want to play that way. I wanted to play in a way where I could hit my windows easier and faster, and it also creatively do it in a way that no one knows where to stick their finger in. No one they all know what the combo pieces are, right? Like Shalyn Halar, everyone goes, "Oh, Red Terror." Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Obviously. The worst one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you don't get to it, you don't need it, and that's what's so beautiful about the flexibility of your Shalyn Halar list.
Yeah, I think I blew Topher's dome off. Like his head was spinning when the first time that I like when I met him, and I explained the list to him, like, and the strategy behind like certain things. Like I'm playing Calyx, Guided by Fate, because it enters the battlefield. It's an enchantment, and it puts a +1/+1 counter on something, so it triggers the combo. Like Shalyn Halar just needs to see a counter go on something in order for it to start spinning the wheel. So boom, if it comes down and it deals combat damage, then it creates a copy of another valuable enchantment, like like a Kenris Transformation or a Static Prison, or like additional copies of Bitter Reunion gets me additional card draw. Seal of Fire, like it's just kind of like crazy how it can create it can also add to additional counts, like give me another Sanctum Weaver, it gives me another like Fear of Missing Out, it gives me another Destiny Spinner. So there are all these things that I can copy and create additional value. So it sounds like a why would you do that? But it makes sense when you play the list. But Topher's mind really started spinning when I told him that you can use Containment Priest and still win the game with an Invasion of Ikoria, Finale of Devastation type thing. And he was just like, dude, you're going to have to walk me through that one. And so if you go and you grab Heliod with any Finale, any Invasion like type effect, as long as you don't have Devotion and like Containment Priest is on the field, people will just think you walked into your own Nambo a lot of the time. But Heliod doesn't enter as a creature, it enters as an enchantment. So Containment Priest doesn't actually see it. And so it enters, you activate it, you punch, you win the game. It
wins through Curse Totem, right? Can't you play Curse Totem in that list if you wanted to?
Yeah, I could. Like if I was hyper aggressive I guess I could, because I guess it would just turn off my dorks. But I would have to choose the window in which to play it, which I think is also a necessary talking point with NAYA, is you have to choose your windows. Like it's all about analyzing. You don't have access to counter spells. You can't make mistakes. You don't have access to the world's greatest tutors. Like the world's greatest tutor we have that gets any card is Gamble. And I've been punished by Gamble a couple too many times, and not being on Underworld Breach. It's like,
we also don't have instant speed wins too, right? Like that's a huge part of the game right now that a lot of people really like. It's not that they're not exactly necessary, but they're not easily accessible. And I wouldn't say Gandalf is like, I'm playing it, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily like a solution for instant speed wins or the deficit of. Right? No. You kind of got to have a meal in play or something like that before you set anything up.
Like people will play Savage Summoning in Shalyn Halar lists, and I'm like, you don't need it.
That's fire. I love that card.
Yeah,
I used to play it in Nadu. Oh, it's a NAYA episode. But so hard to resolve a Nadu. I'm just saying.
Nadu needed to die though.
Come back to me.
Nadu needed to die for NAYA to fly.
They stole me from NAYA for like 3 months. I was like, I can't stop playing this list. It's so good.
Yeah, it was stupid. It was so effective.
Anyway,
yeah.
I'm sorry for that, guys.
Menace, when are you going to put Enduring Vitality in the Shalyn Halar list? It's an enchantment.
It is an enchantment. I haven't. I'm actually making a couple changes. Like right now, I've been mulling over because right now I was. So the big thing with like Walking Ballista being in the deck, I'm not in any sort of like infinite mana. I don't have any infinite mana lines. So Walking Ballista is actually a combo piece with just like Heliod. So if for whatever reason Shalyn Halar, I don't have access to it, Walking Ballista is there for Heliod to combo with. And then also I think Tordeth, I think I talked to you about the Goblin Engineer lines that I put in a little bit. So and I think you actually talked me through it and sort of explained it to me. And that's why I validated it and put it in here, was because Goblin Engineer with a Molten Dupe is a win for, it is a line. It is basically a 2-turn setup, but you engineer into Molten Dupe, in Molten Dupe, the engineer, you put Ballista and Soul Cauldron into the graveyard, and then you sacrifice the artifact copy that was created by Molten Duplication because it also has haste, and then grab the Cauldron out, exile the Ballista, and then you get a counter on something. And if you put it on the Red Terror, it just wins the game. Red Terror itself will just win the game by itself. So that's another one of those lines that I was justifying.
Where we lack in the I'd like to win in your end step, we make up for in multifaceted layers. And okay, you nixed plan A, plan B and C are still available.
They're still online, and I've been walking towards it the whole time. Yep.
I don't have a lot of experience with Shalai and Halar. I have played a little bit of it in its early days, and it's like the deck can support every single stacks piece with its lines, but it doesn't want to run them all, right? Because you don't want to have too many of them, because then you find yourself in a situation where it's like, oh yeah, I don't have Ristic Study. I can't just draw a million cards until I find my win. So you have to be a little bit more selective about your stacks pieces.
Yeah.
How many are you running? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, stacks pieces, notables. I'm playing Containment Priest. I just think that obviously it hurts Rocco, and I need to be ready for that contingency, but it also hurts a lot of other decks that are trying to cheat Thoracle out, or in some other form or fashion put creatures on the battlefield without paying for them. So it's great. It also disguises my lines. Dranith. I'm on Flame Scroll Celebrant right now to battle TNT. A lot of people will just say that even though it is easily bounceable, it gives the table another window to interact where they have to go through the effort to put this back into my hand, or put it back into the library, or kill it, or whatever. It also punishes, if they aren't able to get rid of it, it stops them from infinitely going through their library, right? So if it ends up landing on the field. The other thing is that it's a red source of damage, which Red Terror wants to see. So if they decide that they want to push through, that one counter that Red Terror gets off that is enough to trigger combo lines. So
yeah, and go ahead, they can bounce it all they want to. It's a silence on the other side.
Exactly. So there's
what's the combo with Flamethrower or Flame Scroll Celebrant?
So if an opponent activates,
there's so many of them.
Yeah, so if an opponent activates any ability, right, that isn't a mana ability, Flame Scroll Celebrant deals 1 damage to that player. That's a red source of damage. And so if you see the Red Terror, it says whenever a red source you control deals damage to a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So where casting creatures at instant speed would be valuable, I'd be able to catch more people off guard. It also just creates a layer that they have to work through. So if I land Shalai and Halar and I land Red Terror, if they Beseju or they Otawara, Flame Scroll Celebrant protects that line. So when they activate an ability which captures Otawara and Beseju, Flame Scroll Celebrant triggers and it starts the loop. So they can't actually get through it.
Just makes it a lot tighter to get out of.
Yep. So
that's probably the best use of that card I've ever seen.
Yeah, and that's something that I've dealt with for a long time, is how do you win through an Otawara? I've lost to it too many times when I'm trying to assemble a 2-card combo, and Flame Scroll Celebrant provides that protection. So yeah, and the silence on the back of it. Too good. Additional stacks pieces. I'm on Magebane Lizard for the same reason. It's a red source that deals damage that whenever a player casts a non-creature spell. So this comes down early. It also protects against Underworld Breach lines. And then, just because the more spells they cast, the more damage it deals. And it actually adds up pretty quick. It also stops Displacer Kitten, lines and stuff like that too. So it's really undervalued, and it's on the chopping block a little bit, but I'm still like, whenever I put it down, somebody will go off and they'll play a Lotus Petal into a Tutor, and it's like, yeah, that's 3 damage, and they're on ad nauseam, and it's like, oh fuck, it's like, it really does start to add up quickly. It takes cards away when we're talking about like Necropotence type value. I'm on Aven Mind Sensor as well. I think it's just too good. It's too generically good, like, to battle things in the meta at the moment. So
it seems like you have like a secondary combat or like damage oriented game plan with Shalai Halar.
Yeah, you have to be able to win outside your commander. Like, I think that's valuable for any deck to have as well. So, like, if I can incrementally build the damage up to put them within striking distance of other players, like, I know, and this is sort of like playing with and around like Atlas's type of strategy, where he's actually winning through combat most of the time. Like, putting people within striking range and keeping myself out of striking range is kind of where like that additional damage comes in. And then Aven Mind Sensor is really great. Dualcaster Mage, I don't know if I count that as like a stacks piece, but it is like interaction on the stack. Like, it is counterspell, but I'm also playing Molten Dupe, so I can win through that as well.
Right.
Endurance, I'm playing Conceal over Abolisher. I don't value Abolisher as much as I should, or as much as other people do. But
Conceal,
Conceal. It just has additional card draw on top of it, so like it's kind of like that Rube Goldberg aspect where I am playing +1/+1 counters. So like this does more for me than the Abolisher would, and it's pitchable to Endurance. Blah 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 blah. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
When you're playing these longer game plans, like these more mid-range game plans, there's a lot of really good kind of more lateral strategies.
You got to be able
for
to
value that I think you can take.
Yeah, you got to be able to pivot. There's like it's necessary when you're not. I guess what you were saying earlier about like Rocco, your type of build for Rocco is very like turbo mindset. Right?
Yeah.
When you pursue, how difficult is it for you to pivot? Like,
well, so the thing is with Rocco is that you kind of, because you have a couple different starting points for your lines, you choose the starting point that goes into a line that dodges the current situation. So, like, one of the best things about Rocco is that, like people say, like, okay, there's a tutor in the zone, so you can get whatever you want. I mean, realistically, there's only like a couple cards I'm looking to get, whereas I'm sure I've talked about this before, and Tordeth, Justin, he's like, yeah, I'll just go get a Dryad Arbor, and that's like something like I'll never do. My Rocco sits in the zone all the time, and if you look at our 2 lists, part of the reason so many cards are off is because he's dedicated a lot of slots for interaction.
Yeah.
Which really help you in the mid to late game, but don't really help you have a consistent, like, explosive mulligan, right? But when you get to that mid game, let's say you do stick a Collector Roof or some sort of like tempo stacks piece that like bridges the gap to turn 3 or 4, all of a sudden, like, you go Rocco for Esper Sentinel with deflecting SWAT, Red Blast, and a lightning bolt in your hand. It's like, I'm feeling pretty safe. I'll tutor up the Wirewood in a turn or so and see where things go.
Yeah.
You can really get them in a lock like that, but you're playing with fire, man, when Heuristic Study comes down.
Yep. That's what we don't have access to. Like, the Heuristic Study makes life as a NAYA player so difficult.
And also, like, getting the job done, and this is something that Shalai and Halar does really well, is they get the job done without casting too many spells.
That's kind of the goal, like, too, right?
Yeah, you win with a Rule of Law in play. Like, that's a really strong thing to do, because, like, there's Rule of Law may be the most powerful stacks piece right now. I don't know if that's true, but it may be. but nobody can support it because it's so powerful. Like almost no strategies can win through it. And so if you do have a strategy that can win with one spell,
Yeah,
I mean, you got a recipe.
yeah, I mean, I'm notorious for, well, and this is just, I think, Shalai Halar in general. If it comes down, I'm setting it up. Like, if it's coming out of the command zone, it's because I'm going to, if through a rule of law effect, right? So like, if I put a rule of law down, which actually I'm not on any right now, but I need to put one back in. It's because I am setting up for the win the following turn. So through like some sort of uncounterable effect, like, yeah, like even just to continue through my stacks pieces, I'm playing Rhythm of the Wild because like,
yeah,
I do want that uncounterable effect. It's an enchantment. It contributes to my counts. And then it also puts a +1/+1 counter on something. So like if that is down and then Shalai Halar comes down and the Red Terror or Heliod is already out, Shalai Halar, I put a counter on it with Rhythm of the Wild. It will see that a counter went on the creature and it'll put in a trigger on the stack and then it auto wins. You know, it's like, it's another one of those things. It's another layer in the Rube Goldberg machine. You know, it's like Aura of Silence is great removal, but then it also just punts people out of the game. There's just certain players who can't work through it. Blind Obedience, same way. And it also creates the extort trigger. So like if you gain life off that and it triggers Heliod, it's also another layer. So Cindervines, super underrated, by the way, stacks piece.
I used to see that card a lot.
Yeah, it like nobody values it, or when they see it come down, they go, "It does what?" I'm like, "Yeah, it does damage."
The rattlesnake.
Yep. So yeah,
you know what else is a cool little combo for Shalai and Halar is the Possibility Storm, like with the with like Dranith or the Rule of Law effect. So you can just lock out your opponents from casting spells.
Yeah.
And Naya is so good at making their spells uncounterable. You just like cast your stuff through the Possibility Storm.
My God. Until someone clones your Dranith, and then you're also locked. Like that's,
hey, if you look, if you cast the elf and flip into a clone, you deserve it.
It's like that's like another thing I've always sort of like. I love the clone. I love clone format. Like where we're at right now. I love Stunt Double. Like it's one of my favorite cards. It's in my Bant Bitch list. You know, like I love it. You know,
First
but
Mirror 2 is broken.
There are also things that we can't run as Naya players because of the ability, because of that, right? Like what I noticed is that you guys aren't on Mother Machines at all. Like, and maybe it just isn't fast enough. Maybe it just doesn't do enough, right? For Rocco.
It's actually really good in the list. It does come down to, like you said earlier, just like slots. Tordeth, I feel like it'd be probably pretty solid in your list. Like, why aren't you running it?
Because I'm afraid of not being able to break parity on a stacks piece if it gets cloned or stolen. Because Gilded Drake is just straight up a thing.
Ding, ding, ding.
I am very comfortable with throwing out a stacks piece and take it. Right. So you're talking about, hey, now I can't go through a Dranith. Okay. Well, we have things like Eldritch Evolution and Birthing Pod. I'm on Birthing Ritual, things that I can do without casting spells, or once the spell is out there, triggering other sacrifice options to push my game plan forward if my stacks piece is cloned or taken. I really like Mother of Machines, and I think if we start to see less clones, it would go back in, especially given how late I like to push the game. But yeah.
Well, let me add it. Go. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, just in the interim, it is not for me. The one that I am going to go back up is I'm going to go back up Linvala, Keeper of Silence. That's just too good. And if my dorks get shut off, fine. But now the tournament game is going to go to a draw.
Yeah.
I think there's been a downtick on clones since the printing of the one-drop bird, Mockingbird. Right, since that came out, Blue Farm has cut for Phantasmal Image.
Yep, Image is gone.
they don't run the double blue one.
Flesh duplicate.
So
I haven't
I
seen
think
that in months.
right, like the blue farm is pretty much the only is only on one clone, which is a 5-mana one. So you can't go the Drake or Storm Drake, the Mother of Machines, because it blanks the ETB. So that's not a worry. And also, like, Atlas on the West Coast, man, you can rest easy over here. Nobody's going to be draking you.
I think the one thing you got to worry about always is the metamorph, like, because that's in every list that's in blue, just because copying a One Ring or copying, just
You're
any
right.
creature is
the metamorph is the one that's like that you have to worry about. So as far as like the clone meta, like, it's much less than what we were, but I mean, it's better than it was 6 months ago before Dockside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest instigator for like the clone meta was Dockside, and we're just slowly seeing, like, while creature shells do become more or have become more viable, since like building a board state isn't, Yorn is punished for it because Dockside can just explode out of nowhere. Like, that's what clones were for, right? Clones were for like punishing the player who couldn't get there with Dockside.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You play a Dockside and pass, it's like, that's a death sentence. Like, what a desperate play.
Yeah. What a desperate play. Why did you do that? You just sentenced all of us to death.
All of us, yeah.
Yeah.
Now they have 5 Docksides in their deck. Great.
And they're like, don't worry, I've got it. It's under control.
It's not, I promise.
Yeah.
That's the funniest thing is, like, people would play Dockside and there'd be just like 7 counterspells floating, and every single one of them was like, yeah, that's good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to stop you and then use that.
Yeah, like, I'll let the Dockside resolve so I can copy it when when I stifle
Thanks
you.
for tutoring that up for me.
Yep. When I stop you from going for your win condition, I'll just copy the Dockside. Yeah. That's funny. I mean, so how have your lists changed since Dockside, is no longer an option, right? Like, I think that was a big part of Naya loops and stuff like that. We had Dockside Emil, Dockside Teamer Sabretooth. Like, those were all, like, those were relevant combos in pretty much every Naya build. Like, it's how Naya kept up with other decks, but that meant other decks could also push ahead, with Dockside. So how like have your lists, and how has the Naya identity changed since losing Dockside and Jeweled Lotus? Basically this entire ban, like that whole series of bans, getting rid of Mana Crypt as well. I felt like it made it harder, but also gave us more opportunity. Whoever wants to take the lead on that.
I could start because I have some thoughts on it immediately. Well, for one, rip Dockside. I miss having you in my command zone. That being said, the fallouts for it were, like, ironically a lot better than we thought. Like, it immediately, like, you're thinking, like, okay, I got to cut all these, like, I got to cut the, like, 3 cleanest combo lines in my list. Like, how's my deck going to survive? And then you realize, like, oh, everybody else had to do the exact same thing. And then there's decks that, maybe were more fragile, and, like, the only reason that they were able to get there is because they had the extra speed of J-Lo and Mana Crypt and Dockside to prop them up. But without that speed, they can't go that fast. So decks that are more resilient, like Naya, kind of find a spot. Now, as far as, like, how my deck list has changed, I've gone up about 4 or 5 cards worth of mana. Previously in the Dockside meta, I sat around 53 to 54 mana producing cards, and now I'm up to like 57, 58 mana producing cards. And for reference, Blue Farm's on about 45 to 47.
That's funny. I've never actually looked at, I guess, the composition of a deck in that light.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you look at, like, the lands, right? Like, the more lands you have, the more, like, your land drops are limited by your turns. And so if you're planning on going to turn 3 or 4 or 5, you want more lands so you can consistently hit those lands, because we can all attest for it. Like the cheapest way to go up a mana is just by hitting your land drop and going up. And it's like, you get good colors and all this. But when you want to go up and like cheat a mana, you need like a Mox. And in our format, it does have conditions, right? Or you need like a Rite of Flame, which also like negs you a card. So we're paying a lot to go up in mana. And so you really want to look at like what spot in the game you're targeting and how you want to compose your mana. Like Rocco's really targeting like a fast turn 3 win, or a turn 4 win with protection, at least for like my style.
Yeah,
but you need more mana, right? Like Rocco can do anything with mana. There's a 13 mana 0 card win condition with Rocco that involves Balloon Man and Bellringer.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's like that is so yeah, that's your like consistent window, is that outside of someone playing pure straight stacks, like turn 4 is your desired window. Right? That
yeah. If it's a blue table, I'm looking for turn 4. If it's a non-blue table, I'm looking for turn 3, probably. Like people say, you want a turbo on turn 2, but it's not realistic in the format to like aim for that. I don't think. I think if you're like mulliganing for turn 2 wins, like you better have Necropotence in your deck, I guess.
Yeah, you're likely to lose if that is your pursuit.
Right.
Yeah, you're just going to mull yourself down to not give yourself no chance.
But the other thing that I think is really important to keep in mind with non-blue decks in general is because you don't have resources that can continuously replenish themselves. It's not about like pushing the earliest win. It's about what's the earliest turn that you can push a win. Because just because you can push a win doesn't mean you want to push one. But if you can push one, or if the window is open and you can't push one, then like that's a really bad thing, and you really don't want to find yourself in that position.
Yeah, preach, brother, because like that is what I guess I've also been using my soapbox for, is like, don't press send because you can press send, right? Like being a NAYA player means you have to analyze the game in a different way, because you're right, you don't have access to those like self-replenishing resources like Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora. Like you can play Smothering Tithe, but oftentimes it doesn't necessarily lend to the strategy. It does get you mana. Like I'm sure one of you guys is on Smothering Tithe. Yeah, if not both.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's like if you can get there, you can get there, and then it's just inevitable at that point, because like you said, 11 mana gets you there.
Another strength, if you don't mind me dropping this in there, a reason to play Rocco, if you're looking for like the biggest reason to touch on that consistency of always being able to have a win. There's 27 cards in this deck that card plus the commander can lead to a win, right? Like if you're goldfishing, like you always have, like there's 27 cards that are 1 card win condition, right?
Right.
Like that's incredible.
Yeah, it's unheard of. Like in comparison with my Shalai Halar list, I have 2 cards.
Yeah. Well, you got to count the Worldly Tutor to be able to get those, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, you have essentially a smaller density because your commander, it's 1 combo piece. It's not all of them.
Yeah, and yours is. It's like that's what Rocco can be.
It's addicting how direct, like once you have a deck that can be so direct with its wins and not have to do all these roundabout things of casting 20 spells and hoping the Rhystic Study player doesn't draw a 0 mana counterspell, like being very direct with your wins on the turn that you want to go for them has rewarded me a lot, which I would love to hear. I would love to hear, Tordeth, you have a completely opposite. Like I run like 3 pieces of interaction. Like you run like 14, 15.
So depending on the deck composition, I'm between 15 and 25.
Yeah, like that's crazy.
Beautiful.
So I really want to do the multiple layers, but in some of my, actually realistically most of my Naya deck build compositions, I'll have a Shifting Woodlands, a Savine's Reclamation, and an Underworld Breach, or two of the three. And that's going to allow me, and I realistically, this was post-ban more than it was pre-ban, where I'm going to make the window, but I'm only going to, I'll attempt it once, maybe twice, still hold up interaction to stop the next player from winning. And usually it's a lot of free stuff, like I'll have a Solitude, I'll have an Endurance, I'll have the Deflecting SWAT, or even just 1 mana. So I won't use my Dorks, and I'll hold up a Silence, or I'll hold up a Swords, or a Path of Exile. A lot of these 4-color lists, they don't even have the basic to go get. So if I'm stopped, I have the ability to keep going. So post-ban, I forced myself into resiliency, and 3 layers of is fine. I think once you hit 4, we're into win more territory. But yeah, we got 25, 27 different things that'll allow me to win. Balloon Man doesn't just combo with Village Bellringer. You can combo with a whole bunch of other stuff, or you can even do Wirewood Symbiote with with a Balloon Man loop if you truly have enough mana available to you. So I think why I'm on so many pieces of interaction is once I hit that turn 4 and I'm going to start winning, it allows me to stop the other players to push it back to my turn.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the amount of interaction, like, because even like the layers that I build into my lists are considerate of the Pacific Northwest meta, and I can speak to that, is like the mentality here is play to not lose, and the best way to not lose is to interact. So like if you're putting down a stacks piece, it better not hold you back, it better hold the others back, because I guess the way I look at stacks pieces are that they are like a consistent static haze, like a constant form of interaction. Now people can plan around it and navigate and find little cracks in your defense. There's no perfect stacks piece out there, but it does like force your opponents to navigate and in different ways that they're not used to. And then like on top of that, like I'm playing a lot of flash creatures, like the Containment Priest. Yeah. Here, let me hit the button.
Oh, cracked.
Yeah.
What is this button?
Yeah. Did you guys hear it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. The like flash creatures, like
Yeah, whatever.
nope, that was flash. There we go. Containment Priest, Aven Mind Sensor, Endurance, and like those are like my big like interact with the game creatures. But then I'm on 14 instants as well, and every instant is meant to have the potential to interact with the game in a meaningful way. Right. So
I also think we have the best channel cards as well. Like, yeah. Blue has Otawara, but we have Touch the Spirit Realm, we have Beseiju, and we have Twin Shot Sniper.
Praise.
And that's one of each of the colors. And you'd be remiss to at least not consider all of them. Beseiju's flat out any deck that can run it will run it. And Touch the Spirit Realm,
any deck that can run it will run it.
should be running it. Yes.
Yeah. Like Twin Shot Sniper.
Pieces, it gives you back your pieces.
Yeah.
It blanks the stacks piece, but also if we're talking about being responsible and not punting to another player, if I want to remove an opposition agent, I can, but then it's coming back to stop Sisay next turn.
Yeah, you lift the gates for a moment. For
Just
you,
a little bit.
Yep, for you
Just
to
a
do
little
something. It's like it's one of the very rare pieces that can't be countered. Rarely as ever is it punished, and then it lift the gates on a stacks piece for a moment and then brings them back down. Yeah, when at the end of your turn. So, or at the end of that turn. Like
I had a
think-
game.
Go ahead.
I had a game with Touch of the Spirit Realm where one of my opponents used an Eladamri Korvac doll. He was on some rug, some wild rug list, and he vialed in a Bane of Progress. Right.
Sure.
I responded to the trigger by touching my Spirit Realm or touching my Mana Vault.
What did you do to your spirit realm?
Man, I touched out the Mana Vault, which both untapped it and dodged it. He blew up 2 Ristic Studies. I untapped and killed everybody.
That's so spicy.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah, like
Touch
Bane.
is so
Bane's a
What?
double-edged sword. That's all I was gonna say.
What about Double-Edged Sword?
Oh, I was just saying Bane of Progress is just a double-edged sword.
That card's so good.
Yeah, right now it's really good.
Especially with everybody leaning into no dock sides. It's just like what deck can support that card is really like the reality of the situation.
Yep.
That's really funny. I was talking about it with a Balin player recently, yesterday actually, of should we be running Bane of Progress? A lot of these Balin lists really like Yeva, so if I can throw out a Bane of Progress on Farm's turn, blow everything up, they have no ability to interact. A lot of these Balin tokens are like the Charismatic Conqueror vampires and the Tendershoot Dryad Saprolings. I don't care about my treasures. I'll just rebuild with other stuff. And now you don't have the ability to pay for any of the things that are going to make me more tokens, Conqueror being a good one of them. If you've just lost 80% of your rocks, the next rocks coming down are entering untapped. And now I get to continue to push my commander strategy forward.
Yeah, and like we talked about earlier, blue decks really only have very limited interaction to creatures themselves, and so they have to use their best counter spells in order to interact with it. If you see a Bane of Progress on the stack as a blue farm player, like, good God, someone counter it. They're begging for it to and they're haggling with the table on like, what can I do for you? Can you please just counter that? Because it hurts Grixis players, it hurts like blue farm players in the same way that like Lavinia does, where you can't go into ad nauseam with Lavinia on the table, and then Bane of Progress comes down and it resets you back. It brings you back down to earth, right? Like, and their earth is 2 lands. Like, that is,
If you're a creature deck too, right? Like that's such a swing. It almost feels like a Cyclonic Rift just a resolved.
yeah, and it's a big beater, and then your ad nauseam gets worse and stuff like that. So I don't know. I might consider that, since I care about +1/+1 counters quite a bit. If it wins the game just by coming down, it creates another option for that. It's kind of nice, kind of spicy.
Definitely super high impact.
Yeah. So I just like, now that we've sort of gone through like what NAYA kind of looks like post ban, how we've navigated that and become potentially like, I feel like NAYA has become more resilient, right? When the fact that you can build a board state, you're like, I can finally use my enchantments, and I'm not punished for it. Can we all agree that while Dockside made things smoother, the lines were a lot cleaner, it should never have existed or should have been banned far sooner? Can we agree on that?
I hate that I agree with you on that one, but you're very correct.
Yeah, it's just one of those like things where we got to use it. Maybe you don't realize you're in the golden days until you're past them. Maybe that was like our that era was like our golden days with Dockside, but it's gone. Finally, we're past it, but we're on the other side now. And so we're still putting in work. There are decks that have completely died because it's gone. It's like I'm going to be honest, I barely see any Sisay list top anymore. Like, thank God, because Dockside's gone, that it doesn't have the same access. Same with like Najeela, you just don't see it as often because it's lost its
the truth.
Yeah, it's cost its like Jeweled Lotus, the Jeweled Lotus loss, the Mana Crypt loss, all that stuff. I'm really still shocked that Malcolm still tops quite a bit. Like the most recent episode we did was talking about like Grixis Malcolm and how resilient that is as a mid-range engine now that everyone is playing the type of interaction necessary to stop Roxai. Because let's just face it, like turbo decks kind of are our weakness as Naya players, right? Like
I identify as a turbo deck.
You do identify that way, but can you outpace a Roxai?
My best hands cannot outpace their best hands. No, definitely not. It's you playing Naya, like you're by definition a little bit parasitic, which is fine.
Yeah,
I don't think that necessarily means your win rate is lower.
Well, great pilots will find a way.
You're playing a different strategy.
Yeah. Yep. Like we were talking about like Rocco, how easy it is, and we said this before we started recording, but like I was just saying how I've played Rocco, and it was far too easy for me. Like, and I was just like, I need it to be harder, and like Naya in a way plays with one hand behind its back, like, and you have to want the challenge. The thing is that once you become adept at navigating the game as a Naya player, which is probably the least played color combination of the, like that and Bant, two of the least played color combinations in cEDH. Like, I think they're probably like Lumra is probably being more played than a lot of Naya decks. But
yeah, it's that or Mardu, right? Like I can't think of what's the only Mardu deck playing right now is like Dahada. I don't see too much of anything else.
Yeah, Dahada, and we have a couple of players out here who are on Mardu Dargo. It's like Mardu Timna. So
Guy is so freaking good.
Yeah, Guy's a great player. He's the Dargo. He's the Dargo guy. Like
he's the Dargo king.
Yep. And so like in this color combination where you play with a hand behind your back, you are testing your mettle against like the meta constantly in a way to become, I don't know, it feels like the ceiling is so high and the path of growth is rugged, but it's rewarding. So
yeah, I think I like to joke that this is like playing Dark Souls while you're playing Magic. So it's the Souls mode of everything that we're doing. But the reward for beating that final end boss and topping a table and topping a tournament with these colors is just much more than, yep, I cast Oracle. Good job. You really did it.
Yeah. Yep. It's like you're in a spinning class, right? Now this is a little bit of a walk, but right,
or bicycle.
Yep. If you're not familiar with spinning classes, this is a biking class where you're in a room with an instructor and they're like, turn it up a quarter crank, like increase the resistance. Instead of a quarter crank, you just twist it 2 times full around. You go 8 quarter cranks, man. And you want the resistance. You want that little bit of like, you want to become greater. That like the conditioning that you will receive by making a more difficult situation when you actually, it's like even Rock Lee when he took the weights off, man. Like when you take the weights off, you are lightning.
You know what's funny is I have kind of an opposite opinion to you guys on this one. I don't feel like I'm like shackled at all. I actually feel like the advantages for Naya are huge. Like there's aspects of the game that I don't have to focus on because I'm not playing that game, and I'm able to spend a lot more of my time watching my opponents, communicating with my opponents, reverse engineering combos, politicking in all sorts of ways. And so then, like, when it comes to my turn, like, you know, it's not that I don't have any interaction. Like, you know, there's all sorts of ways to affect the game in Naya. But, you know, there are things you don't have to worry about, right? And as long as you aren't the one pulling those out of people's hands, they're going to be there. And so I feel like if you position yourself correctly, like there's no disadvantages, right? Because the interaction is still there. You just don't use yours.
Yeah. The weights are limited by your color selection, right? So like, just, I guess what I mean by that is you don't have access to Vamp Tutors and Ristic Studies. You have access, you know, but like it makes you get better in so many other ways where you, like you were saying, navigating the game with politics is like, as long as you're not taking the interaction out of other people's hands through your whatever you're doing, right? Like it is always there and no one expects you to interact. Nope.
Right. Which is one of the best things about being on these colors. Yeah.
And that's like, I think Tordeth, why, you know, like you and I love interacting with the table so much with our card selection in these colors is because it is off axis. You know, it's one of those things where it is off like the beaten path where no one expects it. And then out of nowhere, you're like, yeah, no guys, I've got this one, you know?
Or even just resolving something like a seed time where it's so off the ropes and nobody expects it. And then now guess what? I get to untap and just win the game.
Yeah. One of my favorite cards in my build is Dramoka's Command, and nobody sees it coming. It's green and a white instant that says choose 2. Prevent all damage target instant or sorcery spell would deal this turn. Target player sacrifices an enchantment. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. So someone casts Underworld Breach and then they go to cast their first spell out of the graveyard and you go, don't worry guys, I've got this. And you make them sacrifice the Underworld Breach. It's like it's like the funniest resolution because everyone goes, what is happening right now? You know, when you put a +1/+1 counter on something.
Yeah,
I also want to. Go ahead.
I like being able to win on top of other like your own wins by getting that +1/+1 counter instant speed too.
Yep. Yeah, and that's like if I couldn't get there before, I'm going to get there with this, like the instant speed or like trigger on the stack. This is where this deck struggles. Is a lot of the times when you put the two pieces together, while they won't interact with, you know, like Rhythm of the Wild's out or whatever. You put your two pieces out. The trigger for Shaline Halar goes on the stack to, you know, once it resolves, you win. People will bounce your shit or, you know, interact with you at that point. You know, but like Dramoka's Command is another one of those layers that just says, actually, on top of that, I'll put a counter on something, and then it creates the loop again. That's why Seal of Fire is also there. It sits on the battlefield. It can snipe little things, you know, here and there, but then it's also a red source of damage that can sacrifice at any moment to create an additional trigger on top of everything. So
I have a Naya guy Go Do question for the two of yous. Ian, you first. Because this is going to go back to your politics question or your politics statement. And this is very much a social game, was why I play Commander over one-on-one. But so, Ian, have you run into a salty Naya player? Like truly, how often do they exist in the wild?
this is a crazy question.
Oh, dude, Naya people are good people, I feel like. I know that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, right.
Everybody I've met who's ever played Rocco, they're always there for a good time. They're always very social people. I don't know if that is like if there's like a gravity there. Are you making a good people play Naya statement?
Yeah, I mean, if we're reading between the lines, kind of, yeah. But like, you and I vibed the moment we met each other, and it was just, oh, heck yeah, you do that too? Great. And it's basically just straight up smiles and a good time. Say, Menace, same question, man. Like, how often do you run into the salty, grumpy Naya player?
I'm ready to just throw it out there that only good people play Naya.
Perfect.
Running the statement out there. If you don't like it, leave a comment.
Sure.
See, plug-in for the algorithm.
And I'm willing to be wrong on that. So you know what? You think Don Cheadle plays Naya?
Bro, him like he would vibe. He would vibe with it.
Sure.
Give him a Dr. P and little can cap action. He would. Yeah, he's popping off.
I think we can extend that statement that I feel like all red-green players are good people.
Sure.
So, okay. So this is another
like
aspect of
the
Naya,
green
right?
Yeah.
How do you identify, like I'm a green-white. I'm green-white Naya focused. Right? You're green-red. Right? Why have you leaned into green-red? Is it because of the turbo aspect, like those elements that allow you to push forward faster?
Yeah, I mean, like, dude, Orcish Lumberjack is like one of the best cards ever printed as far as like mana acceleration goes. I can't see a reason to not be on cards like that. I mean, yeah, Treasonous Ogre, like if you can just resolve that with green white up, like you win the game. You don't need any other cards.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't know, man.
I see it. I
think red's faster. I think red's faster than green, right?
Yep.
And I
Truly.
think that the white stacks pieces. Here's the problem with Rocco. He loses to all the best stacks pieces, right? All of the best ones, and so you can't play them. You can't play Dranith because of what we talked about earlier. That you can Gilded Drake. That you can clone very easily with Mockingbird, right? And you lose the game immediately when somebody steals, an Aven Mind Sensor, right? Like I can't run that, so I have to run cards like Aven Interrupter. Which, to be fair, like, man, I've had people crack Ranger Captains and cast Ad Nauseam, and you're like, nah, dude, Aven Interrupter, I'm about to untap, and then now you have a 3-drop, which you can, run off with your pod or run off with whatever else. If you're going to be running interaction, like, it should be interaction that, like, at least this is my philosophy, it should be interaction that can also kill your opponents, like a Noxia Survival or, Force of Vigor, like letting you untap and kill them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that you're also playing Dawn's Truce, which I'm guessing is for similar reasons.
Okay. So it's funny you asked me about Dawn's Truce because, like, that card is part of I ran into two tournaments in a row where somebody hit me with a one-ring trigger in time. And so, like, I had to finish up a turn or, like, a Final Fortune turn or something, but there was a one-ring up. And so that actually is part of a combo where you use... Once you get Infinite Mana with Food Chain, you get your Abolisher up or whatever, you get Gandalf, and then once you have your Gandalf in play, you can go in Rocco for Endurance with the trigger on the stack, hold priority, sacrifice Rocco. And so since you have Gandalf out, you can cast Rocco at instant speed. So while the Endurance trigger is on the stack targeting yourself, you cast for Rocco for Dreadnought. Right?
Yeah.
And when the Dreadnought trigger goes on the stack, you sacrifice the Rocco again and then get something like Eternal Witness or Twin Shot Sniper. But if you have a one-ring trigger up, you need a way to be able to kill them without targeting. So you get the Sylvala, and what you do is you do that thing where you get the Endurance and then the Dreadnought, and then it doesn't really matter, and you let them resolve backwards. So the Dreadnought will sacrifice itself and the Endurance, and then the Endurance will shuffle them in to the deck, and then you can use Rocco to pull them back out. And whatever your third creature is, you can just loop that over and over again. So with Sylvala, you get to draw your deck, and then that lets you find the Dawn's Truce and Unwanted Remake and just loop those over and over again because you can draw your deck over and over again.
With an Eternal Witness, yeah.
Yeah, so Unwanted Remake exiles their deck if they have a creature out, and Dawn's Truce forces the draw.
Oh wow, that I was going to ask you about Unwanted Remake too. Like, what were you seeing with it? But no, that's that. Now that is a spicy layered Naya line.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
that's genius. I mean,
dude. Like, it kills Unwanted Remake kills the Rector, right? So like that's why it's so layered. It's so perfect. It's a Swords to Plowshares that doesn't destroy, or that doesn't exile, it destroys.
Except Food Chain's in the top 2 cards, and then you're like, no.
Yeah. That's tragedy.
Yeah.
Don't kill your own stuff, right?
Yeah. It also is. It is. I will say it is like very, very efficient removal in general. Like it doesn't exile, but it does. It is still 1 mana instant destroy target creature. So, like, yeah, it gets rid of Draenus. It gets rid of plenty of other creature based stacks. So while also being a part of a combo loop.
One thing to note that's really nice too is that the gift, it's not optional for them to draw, and it doesn't target. So when you gift, like you can force somebody to draw out when they have an Oracle. So like Dawn's Truce can also protect you against early Oracle wins if they can't back it up. Kind of niche, but it's worth noting.
Yeah,
Still relevant, and nobody will see it.
Exactly.
It's funny how it says you may promise an opponent a gift. That okay, so promising implies that you can also lie. And that just like if you promise somebody you're gonna cast a wheel so that they can replenish their hand, and then you don't.
And then you don't 3 spells later.
Yeah, that implies
the core mechanic of EDH.
Yes, it is.
Right.
You may promise an opponent a gift, so yeah, it does not target. That's funny. That's a crazy line of text that still to this day, the gifting mechanic. Yay. But
They got to make some stuff up.
Yep. Yeah, they just had to make it up. The people in charge with creating the most complex game in all of the world are just making shit up at this point. Okay, I think we're getting nearer to fully realizing our Naya guy GON DO potential and getting it all out there into the world.
Like we did, yeah. I mean, there's so much more to Naya too.
Yeah, there are tons of layers. Like when I was going through my stacks pieces, I didn't even tell you that I play Authority of the Consuls, man. Like
that's wild.
It's weird, but it's like it stops Kiki lines, and it's kind of rad. Like I kind of love it. So and it gains life, so it has a Heliod. I've won with Authority of the Consuls. I tap Forbidden Orchard, give my opponents a creature to create the life gain trigger, and then Heliod wins the game. So it's like weird, but it has worked at least once. So I'm on it. And it's like, there's so many lines, there's so many different things, and there's so many other identities within Naya that we didn't even really these are just our identities. Right?
I think we have the best mass destruction as well. Flat out.
Yeah.
I'm on Blasphemous Act, Ravages of War.
I'm on Final Showdown.
You should be.
Yeah, I think it's great for protecting my pieces. Like I was playing Winds of Abandon for a long, long time, and I'm considering using it again. It's really great mass creature removal that does not destroy, and does not target. Yeah.
I would say if anybody's looking to pick up Naya, and whatever you're looking to do, if you're looking to go fast or in the middle or even slow, it's all viable. But I would just say just remember, if you're going to be going to tournaments, if you're not just playing at the kitchen table, you really want to make sure you have a consistent way to push wins. You have 80 minutes in your timer, and
it's gone.
Even if you decide to go slower, like Justin's going, he still has plenty of ways to execute people, and that's most important thing is you want to win games. That's the goal when you sit down, and find your joy however you can, I guess, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And with cEDH being recognized in the brackets or whatever, this is the end game, right? This is where you continue to grow. This is where the replayability factor comes in, and you're getting in reps after reps after reps. So Naya players out there who are, or maybe you're dabbling in Naya, you're still trying to figure out how it works and everything like that. Working on those lines is critical. You need to be able to manage your time in these games super effectively. The last game I played with Justin, I hated that I did not kill the Rogsai player because he convinced me that he had interaction in hand. He even showed it to me. He was like, if you kill me, I won't be able to interact with the table in a meaningful way. And then he just spent the next 3 turns burning the clock and
To draw.
to draw and pushing win attempts, and then we had to interact with it. It's like I had the opportunity to kill him. I should have just killed him. That way it gives you more time. So like your time, now that cEDH is no longer going to turns, it's going, it's like once the timer goes off, boom, like finish this turn, draw. So
Yeah.
like you need to manage your time so effectively and have lines that are, 1, 2, 3 punches that can like get there early and can also be achieved later in the game, like rather seamlessly. So
Yeah, don't expect to have a turn 5, right? Like that's not reasonable to expect.
Yeah.
I would agree with you on that one.
Yep. There are times where I don't even expect a turn 3 unless I am actively contributing to the board state.
I love those games when I go get some coffee and get myself a croissant or something. That sounds so good.
Oh man. Yeah, like where you get just like, you get Tordeth.
Oh, that's the other best thing about NAYA. Your rounds are short. You usually have 35 to 40 minutes left after the rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Run across.
Right,
get a
wrong, or
coffee.
indifferent, your games should be short.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and even as you're saying, if you're a NAYA player and you're at a table sans blue, rejoice. It is your game to lose.
Yes.
Yeah, especially if you're on Rocco, it is your game to lose. So sometimes the RNG gods punish you a little bit and don't give you all of the opportunity in the world. But yeah, it is kind of, like without blue interacting with your table, which is a lot of what our lists are intended to battle or whatever. You can just you can just pursue your lines like pretty aggressively. So yeah, whatever NAYA identity you fall into, whether it's the bear, the NAYA bear commander, that's also a food chain outlet that draws your library, whether it's Voja, whether it's Zakama, even like
there's that new Samet one that like lowers the, increases their attack, and
NAYA
the speed
Storm
one lowers the cost. That one's spicy.
Yeah, I really like. I enjoy all NAYA lists. That's what a NAYA guy GON DO does.
It's definitely underdeveloped for how powerful it actually is.
Yeah,
I think that's a statement that all 3 of us, regardless of our ethos, like we can all agree, like the color combination is better than people are giving it credit for, and the more people that play it, the more like we learn about it, right?
Yeah, I think and it's something we can all agree with. Our decks are 1 card away from being completely broken. Like,
yeah,
the right card designed doesn't help anybody else, but it turns our decks into nuclear warheads. Like,
I mean, I got Wirewood Symbiote, but
yeah, but something else that like also
one more.
Yeah, one more, please. Whatever your NAYA identity turns out to be, however you find it, give NAYA a shot. Like, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but you also like playing NAYA wasn't like I can't say it was like it wasn't my first deck or my first choice of deck or whatever. It was just what I naturally gravitated to. But in order to understand something to its best or to your best ability, you have to play it. So like print off one of these lists. When I post this video, I'll put these lists in the description below so you can like check out what we're all doing and see that we edited our list 2 minutes ago and know that we're still working on them. But like try them out, print them out, like run it, just like understand it, run the lines yourself. So, it's the best way to understand where windows are, windows of opportunity are and what we're pursuing as players. So as NAYA players.
If there's any Rocco masters in the comments, dude, share some of that spice. We're always on the look.
Yeah,
Please do.
Preach.
And any new NAYA players, if y'all see us out in the wild, hit us up because we will gush and go on and discuss the philosophies in person. And we're always willing to hear the feedback and give the feedback and try out something new.
It's likely we're going to get along and we're going to party too. We're going to fucking party.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's dozens of us. So if you're one of the dozens of NAYA players out there, and you see Menace out at a tournament, come check it out. You can see my stupid face on any other episode. Not this one. It's too stupid this morning to put on screen. All right. And any last chance, final thoughts for NAYA.
You are going to be 3v1'd in almost any single table that you sit down at. You should take that as a compliment because they're truly afraid of your color pie.
Yeah, they don't know what it's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say play what you love. If it draws it to you, enjoy it. Joy is the most important thing. If you don't like what you're playing, you're not gonna do well because you're not gonna be interested in it.
Awesome. Yeah. And same deal. Like, it's all about fulfillment, right? Like, and that's, everyone achieves it in a different way. Some people like countering spells, and you're a heathen if you like that. But
my thing is, I like it when my opponents reveal like 4 to 5 counter spells in their hand after the game. That's my favorite.
Oh, that's why you're
nothing brings me more joy.
Yeah.
Than watching.
And none of them were gonna stop you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's hilarious because it's all about like winning against all odds, right? And that you're going to get that satisfaction for sure. It's so satisfying. Like, and your blood pressure will spike and your heart will race, and that's what NAYA gives me, and that's what cEDH gives me. Like over anything else is like when you assemble this machine and the marble starts rolling and starts knocking dominoes down, and then like the interaction, no one can stick their finger in to stop the ball from rolling, man, just like, and it's coming. That's the thing, is like the turn before, if you're like, if this gets to me, I'm gonna win, it's like I've had turns where I pass and I start sweating immediately. And by the time it gets back to me, I'm trying to keep a cool face, man. I am trying to I'm just praying that it gets back around to me that, so I can jam a win attempt. So it's yeah.
Good feeling. Just talk them into it.
Yeah. That's another, you have to be real good at talking.
Don't pray, talk.
Yeah. Just you can see a guy with his hands clasped in the corner and just not speaking to anyone but himself or God.
Oh, dude,
it's like,
if I see a guy with his hands clasped together with his head down, I'm like, he's got nothing.
He's sending, he's punting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been the NAYA Guy podcast, otherwise known as the MoxStars Podcast, the #1 podcast on the internet for Magic the Gathering and Dr. Pepper. We hope you've enjoyed this 1 hour and roughly 40-minute discussion on NAYA mentality. If there's any additional exposition you'd like to give, you can do so in the comments below. And as always, you can support the show via YouTube, podcast, platform of your choice. You can also support us on Patreon. We truly do appreciate it, and we do giveaways every other week. So enter for a chance to win some free cards, free proxied cEDH decks, maybe even one of these NAYA cEDH decks, which are totally legal when you take them to tournament. Most tournaments don't care about proxies. So just had to throw that in there. Don't be like Ian. Don't play sticker cards. I hate them.
Oh no.
All right, we're getting out of here.
I want to apologize to everybody for that one.
I'm not even going to give you a chance to rebuttal. Don't, you can't justify it in any way. All right. This has been the MoxStars Podcast. Thank you guys again so much for being on the show today. Ian, Tordeth, Justin, you guys are
Thanks
awesome.
for having me.
Yeah, of
Thanks
course.
for having me.
I hope you guys are looking forward to when this one drops, because it's going to be hot.
Selfless plug. Get those fucking tokens. They're super sweet.
Oh yeah, we have tokens. Yeah, they're super sweet. The sweetest. Someone ordered 100 treasure tokens.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What's it gonna do with them all?
I don't know, without Dockside in the world, who knows?
How can you get that high?
Yeah. All right. We're getting out of here. Peace.
Peace.